Alright guys, we've got a big review roundup to go over with Sonic Superstars. I know a lot of you guys are excited to hear about how this game is and if you're going to be purchasing it, how it just worked out with the reviews, comparing it to other Sonic games, and they are starting to come in. Now there is not enough Nintendo Switch reviews. There's only one as of the time that I'm recording this video. It got a 8.5 out of 10, so not a bad score there. But the PlayStation 5 version of the game, that's where most of the reviews were going to, so we are going over that. And in the review roundup here, guys, we're going to break down all of the top scores, the middle scores, the low scores, and try to find some common denominators in terms of what people are saying at the top and at the bottom and in the middle. But before we get into all of that, what's good everyone? OJ here. Welcome back to the video. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get all of the latest Nintendo Switch RPGs, review roundups, live streams, and more first right here on PlayerEssence. Now let's go ahead and jump right into it. So right now there are about 26 scores, and the breakdown here from Metacritic is 16 are positive, 9 are negative. That is a 62% positive to mixed ratio. There are 0 negative reviews. So it has a generally favorable score of 75. That is in the green. I think if it drops one more point below that, it will be in the yellow or mixed or something like that. I know that Metacritic kind of shuffled things around. Their site is so much better now at this point than it was before, but still a 75 overall average, which in my own opinion here, guys, I was expecting a little bit higher than a 75 average, and I want to figure out why it's got a 75. I thought it would at least be a low 80s, so I was off on this one. I thought that the classic formula with the new 3D graphics and the multiplayer and everything that they're doing here, drop in, drop out, would be a home run, would be a no-brainer in terms of getting an 8 Metacritic score or higher, an 80 or higher. So let's see what's going on with Sonic Superstars. So let's start with the high scores. This is a 9 out of 10 from GLHF on Sports Illustrated. I have no idea what that is. And they say Sonic Superstars is a modern 2D Sonic game I never thought we'd get. It updates the visual style in a way that feels true to the classics while bringing in top-tier level design that allows the core platforming mechanic to shine. In a week when both Sonic and Mario are launching new games, it's a good time to be a 2D platforming fan. All right, good stuff there. Next up is a 9 out of 10 from the Games Machine. Those who expected major innovations in Sonic Superstars should not have expected major innovations in Sonic Superstars. I agree there. Sonic always remains Sonic, precisely because he is Sonic. New heights have been reached in this particular type of level design, which alternates sections in which the hedgehog splashes like a pinball, apparently without any possible control on our part. Okay, so there's that. There's actually a read more, but look, they gave it a 9 out of 10. They like the game. Next up is Hobby Consolas. We know about them. We go over their reviews quite a bit. They gave it an 8.9 out of 10 and had this to say. Very good move by Sonic team that has managed to offer the sensations that veterans fans wanted. But with modern incentives and features, it shines almost as much as a Chaos Emerald. Okay, good review there. Next up, an 8.8 from Digital Chumps. And they say Sonic Superstars has shaped up to be a Sonic game that is reminiscent of the Genesis days, yet future-proofed for newer players to enjoy. It is in no way a perfect Sonic game, but it's a fantastic reinvigoration of some of the best facets of the Sonic series thus far. All right, good stuff. So those are all of the top scores right there. That's like the 8.5s and up. Everything here at this point is going to be 8 and below. So let's go ahead and get into those scores. So CG Magazine, they gave the game a 8 out of 10 and stated Sonic Superstars successfully brings classic Sonic into a 3D era while stumbling slightly in its inclusion of a tacked-on multiplayer experience. Next up is from PSX Brazil. They gave it an 8 out of 10 and they stated that Sonic Superstars is a good Sonic game that manages to capture the essence of the Genesis titles. Fun can be found in both single and multiplayer. However, the price of the package is a little above considering the amount of content that is offered. Now, next up is from VGC. We know about them as well. They gave the game an 8 out of 10. Pretty high score from VGC. And they said that Sonic Superstars absolutely nails the classic 16-bit Sonic gameplay. Its power-ups are a hit or miss, and its extra modes and co-op will divide opinion. But fans of the Mega Drive / Genesis days will adore the ways this mixes that old feel with a new look. And I think that I'll say this, and I know other people don't feel the same way, but I've never been a huge fan of platformers and multiplayer and sharing the screen and it runs off and then there's all this and that. Like, I've never been a huge fan of that. It's fun in small little ways, but it's not something that I'm going to sit there and try to do all the time because it messes you up when you're trying to collect everything in these platformers. But once again, that's just my opinion. I know people feel differently about that. Next up is from Games Radar Plus. They gave it an 8 out of 10 and had this to say: Sonic Superstars is like a modern version of a Genesis Classics, with all the good and bad that entails. The 4-player, same screen co-op functionality works surprisingly well. Next up is from TRG. They gave it an 8 out of 10 and had this to say: Sonic Superstars brings the series 2D formula back in spectacular fashion. It's brought back physics and momentum that are strikingly close to the Genesis/Mega Drive originals that combines them with the original zones that all offer fun, unique gimmicks. However, the boss fights are tedious and the lack of online co-op stings. All right, there's that as well. So there's a number of other 8 out of 10 scores, guys. There's at least 1, 2, 3, 4 more, 5 more scores actually, 8 out of 10s that I did not go over. So yeah, a lot of 8 out of 10s. That seems to be the general score for this game. But why did it dip below the 8 out of 10, right? We went over a lot of the positive ones that were really good on the game, but what about the ones that were not so sure about it? Now let's get into the 7s and below. So Spazio Games gave it a 7.9 out of 10 and had this to say: Sonic Superstars takes the Blue Hedgehog back to its retro 2D roots once again. So if you're a super nostalgic gamer, it's a good title, but don't let the classic appearance fool you, because this game is also fresh and modern. All right. Good stuff there. Next up is from PlayStation Universe. They gave the game a 7.5 out of 10 and had this to say: Sonic Superstars is clearly a game made with a lot of love and passion for the Sonic community as a whole. New additions to the formula help to really set the entry apart from its predecessors and blaze new ground for a hopefully promising future. Co-op play is included in a way that's both intuitive and approachable for players who may have never encountered a Sonic game before. All right, good stuff there. All right, now let's get into more of these 70 scores, and we're getting now, once again, if you have a 70 or lower, that's when it's yellow, and that's when it's a little like mixed, and these are where some of those mixed reviews came from that we talked about earlier. So Game Reactor UK gave the game a 7 out of 10 and had this to say: Our Zest has repaired its reputation after the horrible Balan Wonderworld and released a charming family game that captures most of the things about Sonic that are worth preserving. IGN gave the game a 7 out of 10 and had this to say: While the campaign is still enjoyable, Superstars multiplayer component are far worse options than anything in past Sonic games. Like digging emeralds out of the rough, Sonic Superstars' new ideas end up feeling like a mix of both interesting and ill-advised, making it an amusing Sonic game, but not exactly a super one. Okay, interesting words in terms of what they had to say there. Next up is from The Gamer. They gave the game a 7 out of 10 and had this to say: Sonic Superstars isn't holding back the series after the positive reception to Frontiers. It's more than enough to keep it trucking along. Sega is sensible to be cautious about shedding too much of the Sonic's retro identity, but it needs to realize that none of us have hung around this long for Knuckles' terrible recovery speed or the strange instances where a single hit reduces our ring count to 0. Sonic Superstars brings us so antagonizingly close to the definitive 2D Sonic game, but for now, it's a good foundation to build upon. Okay, so there's definitely some issues there with maybe the difficulty or balance when it comes down to it. Next up is from Metro Game Central. They gave the game a 7 out of 10 and said, it's no Sonic Mania, but it's still one of the better attempts to create a modern day 2D Sonic the Hedgehog with impressive visuals but boring boss battles. Now we've heard that a couple times now with the boss battles not being good. Now going into this, guys, we have the 60 scores. So this is definitely scores that are not too positive, still okay, but not so good here. So Vandal gave the game a 6.7 out of 10 and had this to say: Sonic Superstars is a game that has entertained us and given us a good time, but it has fallen far short of the great classics of this saga due to its series of problems and design errors that end up tarnishing the experience more than desirable, which is a real shame since it has some great moments. It is varied, the controls and physics are perfect, and in some of the ideas it proposes are very ingenious and have a potential that is never exploited due to clumsy execution. Sonic deserves a much better game, and there have been many times in which he has shown us how much he can shine in his classic 2D aspect, Sonic Mania being the most recent example. So we can only wait, once again, for the iconic hedgehog to regain his greatness with his next race. All right, unfortunate there. God is a Geek gave the game a 6.5 out of 10 and said Sonic Superstars has some of that high-speed Sonic platforming magic, but the tedious boss fights make it hard to fully recommend. So once again, the boss fights come up. It seems like this is where the common ground is, where people are giving the game lower scores. The boss fights and some of the level designs seem to be the issue here, and that's why I love doing these Metacritic review roundups, because we really start seeing some common things and common trends once we start getting into the middle and lower scores. Next up is from Push Square. They gave the game a 6 out of 10 and had this to say: we're a bit at odds with ourselves on Sonic Superstars. Fundamentally, it's a really enjoyable side-scrolling Sonic title, but the two big ticket features, Chaos Emerald powers and co-op, are arguably the worst parts of it. While the Emerald abilities have their uses, co-op just doesn't mesh with the gameplay at all. We can absolutely recommend this as a solo experience, as there's a lot to like about the fresh art style, largely great soundtrack, and multiplayer level design. Throw in a friend or two though, and it quickly gets messy. So interesting, because some people say that they love the multiplayer, others say that it's not very well done. So who knows about that one until you try it out yourself. Next up is from VG247, a site that we cover quite a bit on these, and they gave it a 6 out of 10 and had this to say: in its core mission, Sonic Superstars is successful. It recreates the foundation of 2D Sonic, some of the finest platformers ever made. Unfortunately, the new elements layered atop that are rather hit or miss. I personally don't think this is anywhere near as good as Mania, but it's good. In fact, it's good enough that I expect fan debate about which game is superior to be fairly heated, which is a surefire sign that Sega is on the right track. Interesting, because in terms of what they said at the end there, it doesn't quite match the 6 out of 10, but I'm guessing VG247, they use the star system, so it's a 3 out of 5, so that one's a little bit weird, right? Now the last review, and this is the worst one, is from Gaming Bolt. They gave the game a 5 out of 10 and said that Sonic Superstars started so well with such potential, but quickly fell off a cliff due to its irritating zone design, forgettable soundtrack, and odd aesthetic choices. So that is the review roundup, guys, and I will give my final thoughts on all of this now that we went over everything, or at least all of the reviews so far here. So the thing about it is this: I think that the game is solid, but once again, there are some things here and there that people are being very particular about. The boss battles in general seem to be a miss. The Chaos Emerald powers seem to be good sometimes, but other times it doesn't really enhance the gameplay that much. There seems to be a few different issues that some people have when it comes to co-op. Some love it, some hate it, but pretty much everyone says the multiplayer, from what I've seen here, the multiplayer is not very good when it comes to the multiplayer modes. So like the separate battle mode, that's not very good. It's a hit or miss, or it's kind of like maybe some people like it or not when it comes to the co-op multiplayer, but the whole battle mode stuff, not quite there. Some people feel the content isn't quite stacking up, but others say that it's just fine. The controls in the game seem to be incredibly well done. The physics and the controls match up with what you would want. So if you're someone that was worried about that, it seems like that is okay. But overall, not bad when it comes to Sonic Superstars. A 7.5 or a 75 average. Once again, I was expecting maybe an 80 average or so. I wasn't expecting anything above like 81, 82, but I thought that it would have at least an 80 average. So I was wrong on that, but there's still more reviews coming in as of the time that I'm recording this video. More review sites will give their opinion, and we can revisit this at a later time in a live stream or something like that. So what do you guys think about Sonic Superstars? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Are you planning on picking up the game? Are you not? Are you waiting for a sale? I'd love to hear what you have to say. All right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch RPG content review roundups right here on screen and on PlayerEssence. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you for the next one. Peace.